It's strange to look at someone you once knew so well and feel like you're staring at a stranger, wondering when they stopped being the person you remember. Sometimes people change so gradually that you don't notice it until you're standing on opposite sides of the person you once knew, wondering how it all slipped away. I never thought I'd find myself here, looking at you with a heart full of confusion, trying to piece together where the connection we shared went. I barely recognize you anymore, not because you've changed, but because I have changed. And now, the person I see before me feels like someone else entirely. You've evolved into someone I don't understand anymore, and it feels like we're drifting apart, even though we're both still here. It's almost like time and experiences have carved away the parts of you I used to love, leaving behind an unfamiliar version of someone I once called mine. The person who stands before me now feels like a distant echo of who you used to be, and I can't help but wonder how we got here. I find myself searching for traces of the person I used to know, but the more I look, the less I recognize. How did we get so far apart? We've both changed in ways I never saw coming, and now I'm left with the overwhelming feeling of wondering who you've really become. I'm no longer sure who you are, or if you're still the same person I once felt so close to. There's a distance now, one I can't seem to close. Sometimes I look at you and wonder when I stopped seeing the person I once loved, replaced by someone I can't quite understand. You were once everything I knew, and now you've become this unfamiliar face with a heart that feels so far from mine. In the quiet moments, I reflect on how we've both changed, and it hurts to realize that the person I once knew is now a ghost of who you were. We used to share a connection so deep that I could read your every thought. Now, I struggle to understand who you've become and how we got here. You've shifted into someone unrecognizable to me, and it's hard not to feel like I'm losing pieces of who I thought you were. I wish I could understand the journey that led you to become someone so distant, but all I can do is stare at the person standing before me, wondering what happened. The more I try to grasp onto the person I used to know, the further you slip away, leaving me with nothing but the feeling of having lost you. It's as though the person I once knew has been buried beneath layers of new experiences, and I'm left wondering if I'll ever uncover who you really are again. There's a haunting feeling of standing next to you, yet feeling a million miles away, struggling to recognize the face that used to be so familiar. How is it possible that the person I loved with all my heart is now someone I don't recognize? It's like the distance between us grew without either of us noticing. When I look at you now, I see a stranger, not because I don't care, but because the essence of you has shifted into something I can't quite grasp. I wish I could trace the steps that led you away from the person I once knew, but I'm lost in the confusion of who you've become. It feels like we're walking parallel paths, never meeting, as if the person I used to love is someone far away, and I can't find my way back to them. There was a time when you felt like home, and now I find myself standing in unfamiliar territory, wondering where that feeling went. We've both grown, but somehow your growth feels like a departure, and I'm left here, holding on to the memory of who you once were. In the quiet moments, I search for the person I used to know, but it seems like you've become someone else, and I'm left to mourn the connection we lost. You've changed in ways I didn't expect, and now I feel like I'm standing in front of a version of you that feels foreign to me. I wonder if you even recognize yourself anymore, or if we're both just lost, trying to figure out who we are in this new reality. There's a profound sadness in realizing that the person you've become isn't the one I knew and loved, and I can't help but feel disconnected from you. I barely recognize you anymore, but not because you've changed in ways I never imagined. It's because I've changed, and I see you differently now. The person who stands before me now is a stranger, not because you've done anything wrong, but because time and experiences have reshaped you into someone I can't quite grasp. When I look at you, I feel like I'm seeing a reflection of who you used to be, but there's something different now, something I can't quite put into words. The change in you is so subtle, yet so profound, that it's hard to pinpoint when I started to feel like I'm looking at a stranger rather than someone I once knew so intimately. It's hard to admit, but I don't recognize you the way I used to. It's as if time has blurred the lines between the person I once loved and the person you've become. I can't help but wonder if I'm still the same person in your eyes, or if I've become someone you barely recognize either. There's a certain sadness that comes with realizing that the person you once knew has drifted so far away, leaving you with nothing but memories. Sometimes the people we love changes so much that we're left standing there, holding on to who they used to be, while they move further away from who we remember. The face I see before me is no longer the one I once adored, and it's painful to realize that time has created a divide between us that's hard to cross. I wish I could turn back time to when you were the person I knew so well, but instead, I'm left with the feeling that you're someone else entirely. There was once a time when I could look into your eyes and see my reflection. Now, I'm not sure I recognize myself, let alone the person standing in front of me. In the silence, I find myself questioning when you became someone I don't fully understand, and how the love I once had for you started to fade. I wonder if we've both grown apart so much that we've forgotten how to truly see each other. The person I once knew seems so far from reach now. The person I thought I knew has evolved into someone unrecognizable, and I'm left here searching for traces of who they once were, hoping to find a way back. In the end, we all change, but it's hard when the changes we experience make us strangers to the ones who once knew us best. Looking at you now feels like looking at a different version of someone I loved, and it's impossible not to feel lost in the midst of all the changes. I once thought I knew every inch of you, but now it feels like I'm standing in front of a person who's become someone I no longer understand. The person you've become isn't bad, but they aren't the person I remember either. And sometimes that's the hardest realization to face. I didn't expect you to stay the same, but I never imagined that you'd evolve into someone I can barely recognize. It's a feeling I can't shake. You're still the same person in many ways, but there's an unfamiliarity now, a distance that leaves me wondering where we both went wrong. When I look at you, I see so much of the person you were, but also so much of someone I don't know, and it's a strange feeling. You've changed, and that's okay, but I can't help but feel like the person you've become is someone I have to learn to love all over again. We're both different people now, but it doesn't make the process of recognizing each other any easier. I wonder if I'll ever find the person I once knew. I never thought I'd feel this lost in the presence of someone I once knew so well. But the changes are undeniable, and I can't seem to find my way back. It's heartbreaking to realize that the person you've become feels so far from the one I once loved, yet I can't stop searching for the pieces of you I used to know. You've become a version of yourself that's unfamiliar to me, and in this new reality, I wonder if I'll ever find my way back to who you once were. Sometimes, the hardest part isn't the changes themselves, but the realization that the person you once knew is no longer within reach. I barely recognize you, but I know that deep down, you're still the same person in many ways. It's just hard to see through all the changes. I stand here, looking at the person you've become, and it feels like we're worlds apart, even though we're still standing in the same room. It's difficult to come to terms with the fact that the person I once knew has transformed into someone so different, and I'm not sure how to navigate this new reality. Looking at you now is like watching someone I once loved slip away into a version of themselves I can't understand, but I still hold on to the hope of rediscovering you.